So that's the little preamble. I'll invite Minister Bumi if you have anything to share, and then we'll get into our panel sessions for the day.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to share a few words. Pastor Mary said I was going to be speaking for a few minutes, and for a minute I thought to myself that what can help set the stage for this meeting. Personally, I'm very excited, not just as a speaker, but as a participant of this event. I was telling Pastor Moyo on the way here that one of the things I try not to do, and I do not do, is I don't take the people in my orbit for granted. I'll share an example. Dr. J.J. is my very good friend. I've known him for close to 30 years. He does a few things different than I do them, and he does them pretty well. There was a day we were making a trip out to, I think it was someplace in Canada. And the first thing I said to myself is, my goodness, I get to spend 2 hours with him on the trip, 2 hours coming back, and we ended up staying in the same hotel. I still have the notes that I took on a trip with my buddy, okay? I don't take him for granted. I respect the grace on his life. I respect the things that he does. And that's the way I treat Pastor Moya. Because sometimes when you have people in your orbit, if they've got game, if they've got things that you do not have, the first thing you do is to realize that they do have something you do not have, and then tap into it. I share that because oftentimes we meet all these people, we kind of take them for granted. It's like, it's not Deji. No, it's not Deji. It's Deji who is doing things that I have no concept of how he does them. But even if I do have a concept, I don't have the practical knowledge that he has. I need to tap into that. And I guess there's resources like that in the church. The reason that is important is because oftentimes what limits our ability to succeed in life generally is our attitude. And that's the first thing I wanted to speak to, that really, if you look at Scripture, every single thing you need has been made available. I'll be a little vulnerable here. I'll share a story with you. 2008, right after the recession hit, I was a newly married man. My wife had just come to join me in the U.S. And obviously, I was a man of faith. I went to grad school. The amount I needed to pay for grad school there was 50 grand. And it was the most money that I'd ever imagined that I would be spending. At that point, there was no way I was going to get the money. It was the biggest debt that I could even imagine. Today, that's nothing. But I share that with you to say that it didn't start that way. The story I wanted to share with you was a certain day when I really got frustrated because I was believing God. I'm like, I'm a man of faith. This should work, and that should work. If there was any lesson I learned from that one season, God didn't fail me. I mean, I literally I gave everything up. I jacked up my credit, okay? That was how bad it was. I really did jack up my credit. And I was like, but this doesn't make sense. I mean, how do I jack up my credit and you're believing God? But I'll tell you the one lesson, and that's the lesson I hold with me. God wasn't holding up for me all that season. Everything that I needed was available. I was just playing dumb, or I was hoping God would do the things that he wasn't going to do. God was actually waiting on me. If there's any one charge that I have for everybody here today is, number one, every single thing you need is available. And I mean every single thing. I dare say that if you had a dream of getting out of debt, getting a job, I don't know what it is. I'm almost convinced that when it's all said and done and you've done everything you need to do, if you stand before God and you say, why didn't you do this? I'm almost certain he's going to ask you a question. Why didn't you do a few things or take advantage of the resources that I made available? The charge here today is everything you need is available. Number two, let's check our attitude. And I guess the first thing about the attitude is not taking the things that are around you for granted. People, resources, mindsets, and things like that. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of actionable steps that will be shared today. But the truth of the matter is, if we don't take action, it's probably not going to make the difference it's supposed to make. So I'm excited to be here today in whatever capacity I am given the opportunity to be, either as a speaker or as a learner. But I'm hoping that it will be a good time for all of us to just not just talk about money, but to be able to look in years to come and say, you know what, whatever challenges you're facing today, it could be a couple $100, thousands of dollars, or millions of dollars. You'll be able to look back and say, it's really nothing, that God has helped me. So with that, I think I'll hand over to Pastor Moyo.
All right, thank you. So I think next we're going to go into the first session, and I see this is supposed to be moderated by Deacon Tommy, but she just walked out. But let me just call out the panelists. So the first session is going to be about career, just like people's career journey. And what I wanted us to do as a format for this event was to not make it like a presentation, but to make it like an on-the-couch session, right? So almost like you're listening to someone's living room conversation, right? And then also give the opportunity for people to ask very detailed questions, right? So for this particular session, I would invite Dr. Tayo Oladuni, Pastor Lai Abujade, Joy Adedeji, Down Mamora, and my lovely wife, Deacon Tommy Mamora. So all the mics are on the chair, so take your seats and
He said it's not good to stay too close to the host, so you may be getting all the questions. I know. All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. This session is going to focus on career. And on stage with me, I have people in different phases of their career. So they'll let you know where they started their journey, and we would also encourage questions, okay? We want this to be really interactive. We'll start with certain things and then we'll ask questions. So I'll start with you, Joy. In about a minute or two, tell us your first job and your background and what you're doing right now.
Thank you. So my name is Joy, like you said. I currently work as a senior data analyst in a health tech organization. But my first job I was titled supervisor, but I was working as like a billing person in a home health organization. And that job was actually a miracle job after like 1 year of being in the job market after graduating as an international student. So I started off there, and it ended up being a stepping stone that God used to get me the other job that was more appropriate for me, given my qualifications. So I have a bachelor's degree in statistics and a master's degree in information technology.
Great. So how many years of work experience, professional work experience do you have?
I have about 7 years work experience.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, we'll go to you, Pastor Lai.
All right, thank you, everyone. My first job was in Nigeria. Right after college, I had studied economics, so I thought I knew I was gonna go in that line, but I found a job at the Internal Revenue Service, so for Lagos State. So that's a state in Nigeria, for those that are not from Nigeria. So I worked there for like 6 months, and I resigned. And I'm like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. I felt like I wanted to move into another line, which was more related to communication and media. So I started to pursue that, went for a couple of trainings, maybe like 2 weeks training and all of that. Then I got the job at this online radio station. I worked there for free for like 3 months or so. They didn't pay me jack, but I was just excited that I was working in this space. And then I dovetailed from there, came to the US like 2017. I knew I wanted to do something related to media, but at that time I started to think of, okay, what is more practical now, right? This media space is already saturated. You need something more grounded. So I said, okay, let me pivot a little into tech or something related to tech. So I went for my master's. Sorry, I have 1 minute, right? So I did digital communication and media arts with experience design for my master's. And then right now I work as a product manager at a tech company.
Great. So how many years of professional experience?
Plus the IRS.
Every
I would say like 10,
Okay.
10 to 12.
Perfect.
Yeah.
10 years. I will go to Dr. Tayo before I come to you down.
All right, thanks. I'm trying to think. My first job. Okay. Yeah, my first job was actually for ExxonMobil in London. So I graduated with a bachelor's in system engineering and management. So I went into the oil and gas primarily because most of my family were already invested in the oil and gas. So it was an industry I kind of knew. But obviously I wasn't like a petroleum engineer. So I pivoted into information technology, building project management tools for all the tech projects within the oil and gas. I did that for about a year, and I knew I wasn't going to stay in London. I was going to move to the U.S. to come pursue advanced degrees. And I think I was fortunate to land into industrial engineering, but I'm not a typical industrial engineer. I'm more of a data scientist, statistician, mathematical programmer. And again, it must have just been God's direction, because that was not where I was leaning to. I met people along the way, got good counsel, obviously did my own internal soul searching as well, and I kind of landed there. So I did pursue a master's as well as a PhD in industrial engineering, and use that as a platform to kind of start my career journey in data analytics. So I started right after my PhD education. I did a postdoc at University of Purdue, or Purdue University. I didn't really like it. It was just too laid back for me, and I wanted to get into the industry. I was actually trying to relocate into the Texas area because I went to school in Oklahoma with PMO as well. But that was just not in the cards for me. So I got a job in Chicago, relocated to Chicago. Chicago was good because PMO had already even moved, I think, a year or 6 months before. Pastor May's brother was here. A few other people were here. So it was an easy transition into Chicago. Worked with Accenture, spent about 5 years of my career doing consulting, worked with Accenture, then IBM, then got an opportunity to work with GE, retail finance, which is now Synchrony Financials. I think I might have spent like 3 years or 4 years there. Had a stint as well in healthcare insurance. That was not my forte, to be honest. It's just an industry that is too slow. However, you all should, don't take my word for it. Start where you can get a job, right? And as you grow in your career, you can pivot, into other industries or into other roles. But for me, it just wasn't, it was too slow paced for me. I'm just used to fast-paced environment. So after about 3+ years, I left and I joined JP Morgan Chase. I hope we're not on live stream. Okay, well, the cat is out of the bag already. So, and I think I've spent the last 7 to 8 years there as executive director of data science for small business line of segment.
So how many years in total now? I'm just trying to let you all know how many years experience we have sitting here. So if you have questions,
17 plus.
17 plus 17 here, 34. Okay. And just some of the things they've mentioned, I think we'll go back to that, double click on some of those things so that you can learn, right? Pastor Lai started in communications. He came, he checked out the market, and then went into tech before he switched over to something else. She started in home health billing, which had nothing to do with what she wanted to do or what she studied. But that was her miracle job. It was a start. It's her working with the crumbs, right? This is what I have right now. How can I start with that? And we'll still talk about that. And then Dr. Taya started with, started in a family of oil and gas, right? And he tried that, and then he knows he doesn't want to do healthcare. So we'll talk about those pivots, to understand what you really like so you don't feel stuck. And then I'll go to down if you can just, your first job, just a brief background and how many years, professional working years.
All right. Hi, everyone. So my first job, my bachelor's degree was in chemical engineering. So my first job was as a production supervisor working in manufacturing. I got that job 1 year after I graduated from college, so that was definitely a challenging time for me because I was also an international student as well. So that was in food processing. The company was Cargill. So I basically worked in food processing for, I think, a little over a year and a half. I didn't like it. I didn't really feel food processing was my thing. So I knew I wanted to pivot, so I went back to get my master's degree in engineering management. So getting the master's degree was definitely very instrumental because during my master's program, I was able to intern in Turk. I said Turk. I sound like Bobrisky, pardon me. I was able to intern in tech. So I interned at Dell Technologies. And then after graduating from my master's in engineering management, I ended up getting a job at Tesla. So I was working as a technical project manager. So I think I was at Tesla for like about a year and a half. Left Tesla to be with Disney streaming, which I currently work at right now.
Perfect. And I'm the host, Tomi Mamora. My first job, like Pimo said, was working in a shoe store. I did not like it. People were pretty rude, and people will come into the store, put shoes all over, and not even buy any. And don't talk about the people trying to steal shoes. I'm like, so I did everything from security to ringing up to breaking shipment and putting it in the trash in the winter. One day I got locked out of the mall and it was negative something degrees and I didn't have my jacket. I had to walk around. It was terrible. But I kept telling my boss I'm going to pharmacy school and she would laugh. She's like, do you know what pharmacists do? So the journey has been pretty interesting. The other thing that happened in my journey is it took me 4 years from graduating high school to starting college. And that wasn't because my parents couldn't afford school. It was just the system in Nigeria. You write JAM, and then it didn't work out. And then I did a diploma degree, and then I didn't get into the second year. And then you have to wait 1 year all the time. I graduated high school at age 15, and I didn't start college here until age 19. It was a journey. I didn't give up. I learned a lot of things. I learned how to drive. I learned how to use a computer. I learned math. By the time I came here and I did my placement test for freshman year, I tested into junior year of math. So sometimes you feel like time is being wasted. I'm waiting for a job. There are things that you can learn. Anyways, fast forward, went to pharmacy school. So altogether, I have a little over 15 years experience in the professional industry, and I also switched from being a traditional pharmacist into something else. My husband would say, you're the strategy person. I just always wanted to be in the background, thinking critically for a company on strategy, and I love that right now. So anyways, let's start with folks here who are looking for a job. Let's start from there before we go into the career journey. So I'll ask this question, and I will start with Joy, okay? All right. Before you even get to the interview, many people assume networking is only for extroverts. So all they do is sit behind a computer at home and apply for jobs. They don't talk to anyone. They don't network at all. What are some simple ways for anyone who's an introvert to start networking in order to build relationships while they're looking for a job?
I'm an introvert. And I know networking is really critical in the job market, especially right now, with like AI recruiter and ATS and all of that. And I would say networking is not about being loud, it's about creating relationships. So I would approach it just wanting to connect with people, knowing that sometimes, favor, the miracle you're looking for can come from those relationships that you can build. And outside of just putting an application, it's important to maybe try to reach out to people who work at that organization, somebody who is in the same position that you're aspiring to be in, connect with them, form relationships, approach it, asking questions, be curious, and also, ask questions, but also offer information. That's a good way to build relationships. So, as an introvert, think about it like building relationships. You don't have to be the loudest person in the room. Connect to people on a personal level, and those relationships can open doors.
Thank you. So you don't have to be an extrovert to network. Let's go to Dr. Tayo. If someone were to, so you're trying to network with someone on LinkedIn, how would you recommend they prepare for those conversations?
LinkedIn is already an information hub, right? So there's tons of information there about the person. You want to understand the background. You want to understand, just look at the profile of the person, right? And I like to think that there's something that is drawing you to this person that you want to make a connection with. Either you're in the same field, or you're fascinated about this he or she's career development, or there's a particular project that he or she just rocked on. There has to be something that you want to key on, because that's what you're going to use to kind of start the conversation with whoever the person is. It's also, we've got so many tools right now. You have your LLM suites where, you could bounce ideas just with that chat box, and you could even, within the LLM suite, you could actually put the profile of the person, feed that into the LLM, and ask the LLM any question to help with your preparation of how you want to, engage whoever the person of interest is. So that's just, I would say, one, especially in this day, current dispensation where, you can just be behind your desk behind your desk or behind a laptop. You want to put that into, constructive use, right? So that's what I would do in this current dispensation. Obviously, there are other ways to go about doing that. I think Joy also mentioned some of that too as well, where you have to be deliberate, right? You have to be deliberate. Most leaders or folks who've done things, advanced in their careers, typically want to share that information. So I'm telling you, this is it's a secret for you guys. People are always happy to tell you about their story because they feel that they're impacting knowledge to you, and hopefully you can pick on one or two things and advance it, right? So don't be shy, don't be shy, but come in prepared, right? Prepared meaning that you know this person, you know something about this person, so that you don't have awkward moments or awkward conversations.
And I'll just add to the networking conversation. There are a lot of people in church every Sunday. You can practice your networking skills right here in church. So every Sunday, you can just come with, I'm going to try to meet someone today. And then it gets refined because the first day may be awkward. You're like, oh, I didn't ask that question correctly. But if you try to do that every Sunday for 3 months, by the time you actually need to network for a job opportunity, you've learned it, you've mastered it, right? There are opportunities, there are people, different people in church, like we started, different career fields. You can ask, so what do? You can do that to help you prep. The other thing I was going to share, let's actually go to Pastor Lai. Let's talk about interviewing. I'll say this really quickly. Let's talk about interviewing. How can people interview confidently without sounding like they're bragging? Because sometimes as immigrants, they've taught us to don't talk too much, don't brag too much, just say what you can do. How can people talk about their achievements in interviews without sounding like they're bragging?
I mean, it's basically just talking about it the way it is, without necessarily sugarcoating it. That's number one. I would say that for me, what has worked is just interview more. Do interviews when you're not looking for a job. You don't need to be looking for a job to do interviews. I've done interviews that I've gotten offers that I just got to turn down because I just wanted to get used to. And it's not like, it just helps you build your confidence. So oh, I didn't do this right at that interview. I should have said this, I shouldn't have said that. And then you build your confidence more and more. And then also, you practicing before the interview. So you know what to say. But the good part about it is, for me, you do those interviews so much that it becomes like a plug and play. You don't even prepare for interviews anymore. You just, okay, what's the role? What are the responsibilities? And then you just go for the interview. And and then favor would work for you. The person on the other side would just want to talk about something else, about soccer, about movies, about stuff. I've had this kind of experiences before. But you prepare, though,
Yeah, I like that he said, just practice. Sometimes just apply for a job. Even the application process, you learn doing that, right? You have to think of how to construct some questions. Let's go to down. I know sometime in your career you used to review resumes for people. So talk about what are the most important things to put on your resume. Sometimes people want to make it an autobiography. And what are some good, solid points that people should include in their resumes?
Yeah, awesome. I'm actually just trying to picture a resume right now. So, of course, at the very top, basic information like your name, your contact information, your phone number, your email, and it's sometimes helpful to also put your current location, of course, not your full address, but if you live in Chicago, maybe Chicago, Illinois, or whatsoever. Of course, your education. I keep sounding, I said education. Pardon me, I was doing some Bobrisky stuff again, but education as well. And one thing I want to call out as it pertains to education is that you want to put the educational information that pertains most to the job you're applying for. I say this because I've reviewed some people's resumes and maybe they're applying for, I don't know, let me just pick a job, maybe like a civil engineering job, and maybe they've done, multiple programs, like school programs, maybe they did one in finance, they did in, chemical engineering, and I end up seeing that the education section is occupying a huge chunk of their resume. So I always advise people only put the educational information that applies most to the role you're applying for. If you've done 6 degrees, if all 6 degrees are not important and only 3 are, only put the 3 educational information on there. So now the next one, which I feel is so important, is the experience section of your resume. The thing I really want to call out there is to make sure that your experience section is not only task-oriented, but it should be result-oriented. Because I've seen some people's resumes where maybe on the experience section, they're like, oh, I maybe I worked with a group of people to build a house. Like, that's all they're putting. But the question lots of hiring managers would have is, what was the impact of maybe building that house? Or what was the impact of that project, right? Did the projects you worked on help to increase production? And if so, how can you quantify that? Did it help to reduce cost? If so, like, was it a cost reduction of 20% or things like that? And if you worked with people in that project, or if you led a team, it's also usually helpful to try to quantify those things as well. So maybe like led a team of 5 engineers to do X, Y, and Z. But once again, make sure to focus more on the results as opposed to the task. And similar to what I mentioned for the education section as well, when filling out the experience section, making sure that this section tailors as well to the role you're applying for. So same mistake I mentioned earlier on, there are people that could be applying for, let's say, I don't know, I'll just maybe pick a product management job. They've worked maybe in McDonald's before, but then they have like other relevant product management experience, but then they're putting the McDonald's job on the resume, and just things like that. So my point is that you don't have to put every single work experience on your resume. Only put those that tailor most to the job you're applying for. And the other thing, I'm going to be done soon, is to also pay attention to the job title you put on your resume. Of course, I mentioned earlier that I made a career pivot from manufacturing to tech. And when doing that, I had spoken to people that were working in tech, so people that were working at Meta, at Google. And when they were reviewing my resume, that I used to work as a production supervisor in food processing, they're like, what were you doing as a production supervisor? I told them what I was doing, and they're like, that is literally what project managers do in the tech world. So rather than putting you were a production supervisor, just have that you were a project manager, because it's like a hiring manager at Meta or Google would not understand what a production or who a production supervisor is. And that's not lying, right? Because you're literally just finding a different way to communicate what you did, right? So communicate that job title. And last but not the least, of course, including your skills section, making sure you're focusing more on technical skills, like maybe if you know how to use Python, put that on your resume. And I'm putting more emphasis on technical skills, because I've seen resumes where people say, oh, for my skills, they're putting collaboration, they're putting teamwork. Those things should be reflected in your experience section. So just try to focus more on your technical skills in the skills section of your resume.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I think one of the things to focus on is when you're writing about your experience, focus on the results. I know there's a format that I've used, and it's quantifying it. So increased, production by 15%. People like to see dollars. Saved the company, $3 million. And sometimes you're volunteering in church. That's experience. Improved, ushering XYZ time by XYZ time. I'll say this. The first place I learned how to be a leader was in church. I was leading the hostesses then. We were like greeters, right? And I could do my job. It's different when you're leading people, right? Because you can do the job, but now you have to help people develop themselves to do the job. Otherwise, you'd be like, you know what? Don't worry, I can do it myself. That's not leadership. I learned that, and in some of my interviews, they would ask me a question. Tell me about a time where you had to lead a team. Leading a team for Summer Blast takes a lot of strategy. Sometimes we think it's, you don't have any job experience at all, and you're seeing yourself as this tiny worm, but you've led a department from, you started ushering team from 2 people, and now they're like 15 solid people. That's experience. That is experience. Sometimes we get intimidated by all the finance and the numbers on LinkedIn, but what you're doing right now is relevant. I think Pastor Lai wanted to add something to the networking. I'll let him do that, and then we'll move on.
I was going to say, you kind of mentioned it, but what I wanted to say was, when it comes to networking, I feel like people should not go. No, I'll take that back. You can go outside of your circle, go anywhere and network, which is good. But I feel like one of the best ways to do it is to start from where you are, right? You don't know who is beside you. You don't know who you work with in church. You don't. And I'll give some examples. Start from where you are. You can network even without networking. Your work can speak for you. You're working with a team of people. People are watching what you're doing. Something else might come up. You might need a job sometime. That's another way. And then also helping others and paying it forward. I'll give an example of, so when I was in my master's program, I was on a team with this group of people. There was this guy on my team. We'd work together because I was working then and I was going to school at the same time. So I could only volunteer as much for the group work that we did together. So I wanted to be more strategic in what I was doing for the team. But there was this guy that was always available to, set the meetings up, do this, do that. And I kind of liked his work ethic. Now, this guy didn't tell me he was looking for a job. One time at my office, I was like, they need somebody for this job. I saw an opening. I reached out to him. I was like, what are you doing now? The guy was like, he's been looking for a job. He's not really doing much. And all of that. I said, okay, do you want to work for my company? Blah, blah, blah. So we went through the process together. Resume. Okay, how much should I ask for? Ask for this. The guy was like, this money is too much. I'm like, ask for the money. I know what they're paying. So no, I'm just starting. I said, just ask, right? And then the guy got the job. Now, he didn't reach out to network, but the reason why I reached out to him was because I saw his work ethic. We were together on multiple teams during my master's program, and was my course mate. Another one, someone in church. I mean, this person was never in church. It was summer blast or something like that. The guy just walked in like, Alpha, where have you been? I'm like, I'm looking for a job. Oh, what do you want? Oh, you want to work in my field? Okay, I'll check out if there's anything at my company. And that was just it. Now, imagine someone with you in church and you didn't say anything. You're looking for a job, they don't know anything about you, and all of that. And then the guy got the job. Another person too in church, like, I lost my job. Okay, do you want to switch to a field? There's a job at my company if you're interested. And then the person got the job, right? So I'm saying start from where you are. I've reached out to people before on LinkedIn, and sometimes they just don't answer you because they don't know you. It's hard to refer someone that you don't know, that you've not worked with, that is not proven and tested, right? But it's easier when someone can vouch for you that, okay, I know this person. For example, if I come to Dr. Bumi now and I say, Dr. Bumi, I need a job, you'll be able to refer me, right, Dr. Bumi? Hopefully.
And I like something that you said. For some of us, what you're doing right now, you're not even doing it well. It's like you come late, you do, this is not my job, you see something on the floor, it's like, facilities should be picking that up, not me. What you do right now speaks volume, right? And that's why he was able to refer. So whatever your hand finds to do right now, do it well. There's some people that will come to me and say, I'm looking for a job. In my mind, I'm thinking, there's no way I'm referring this person. Like, absolutely no way. Always late. You can't even keep a department. You haven't proven yourself. Why do I want to put my name on the line for you? So things that we're doing in church, they really matter. Being on time, helping other people. We've spoken about about networking, right? So trust me, there's a lot. You don't have to go to school to learn all these things. Anyways, let's go to Joy. She's been quiet for a minute. Now that people know how to network, they know how to get their resumes to the right place. Let's talk about if there's anyone in the room right now that's considering changing their careers. It's like they're feeling stuck right now. I really can't do this anymore. Can you talk about how folks can pivot without feeling like they have to start over from the beginning? If you feel like you haven't experienced that, I'll open it up to anyone because sometimes people feel stuck or they want to transition. What are some things they can do without going to school to get a master's degree or without starting from the beginning?
Yeah, I can talk a little bit about it, and definitely other people who've had more experience pivoting can jump in. I think when people think about pivoting, they're often thinking about like getting, like you said, like doing a course, going to school. Sometimes you can explore maybe learning benefits at your organization. So if you're thinking of doing a course, that course might be available through your organization's learning portal. So you can start there, learn with what's available for you. You don't have to spend money buying a course or whatever. And then you could also express that desire to like your team, like your manager. They might be able to connect you or position you for projects or refer you to projects or opportunities that allow you to gain those skills that you need. So if you're looking for a new opportunity, it might be a different role, but that role requires certain skills that you might be able to harness in your current role, in your current opportunity. So you can continue to, work on those skills in your current role, and maybe your manager or someone else in your team can refer you to different positions that might be more aligned with what you're looking for. So you can start pivoting from where you are. Like, it doesn't have to be like a huge pivot, where you're, doing a course. That's okay too, but you don't, there are other ways to do that don't necessarily require that.
All right, I'll go to Dr. Tayo if you want to answer the same question. How to pivot without starting from the beginning or going to school?
Sure. You probably want to, if you want to pivot, you need to start from where you are. So, say you're in my department and you want to pivot into some new role. Obviously, I need to know what you're interested in so that as I talk to my peers, an opportunity presents itself. Obviously, I can float your name. But I should also be seeing some of that in what you're doing, because it makes the conversation easier for me. It makes it easier for me to sell to anybody, right? And that means that, I think I said earlier, you have to be deliberate in what it is that you want to do. If you're trying to pick up a new skill, God knows, in the big industries or in so many work environments, they typically do all kinds of surveys, all kind of volunteer activities. I think it's beneficial to, put up your hand for such things. If there are big problems the department also or your function might be facing, I think it's worth to, put up your hand, because that's how your manager or the organization will see you in a different light, other than doing what you were hired to do. It means that you're evolving, you're growing, you're picking up new skill sets. And that's what organizations want. They want you to be multifaceted. But again, you have to be doing that in your present function, in your present boundaries. Don't go and pick up a volunteer work or any extracurricular activity in a department where nobody has visibility. At the end of the year, if you're writing all that in your performance review, I'll probably be more upset, because if you're telling me you have all this kind of skill set and you're doing it elsewhere and not in my own department, pretty much it's not adding value to my department or my organization, then I think there's a red flag. So again, it has to start from where you are, within the confines and the boundaries of your current organization, function, work stream, whatever ladder, that you're part of.
Yeah, that was into it. I'm going to say something really quickly, just from my experience. I'm a pharmacist by training, and sometimes when you ask people, what kind of job are you looking for? They're like, oh, yeah, I'm looking to switch my job. What kind of role are you looking for? They're like, oh, I'm an accountant. I'm looking for where I can make more money. I'm trying to make more. People don't just give you a position because you are looking for more money. You need to sell the value you're able to add. You need to be able to sell that. Sometimes I'm asking folks questions during an interview. They're like, why do you want to switch your job? Because you have a job now. Why this current role? And they are as confused as I am. I'm like, you are trying to convince me, but you are confused. And it sounds like you're just trying to make more money. Or when people start to tear down their current role and my manager and this place is toxic, and I'm like, sounds like you're the problem. And we do not want a toxic person, Something I want you guys to also take out of this is you are in charge of your career path. Because sometimes people say, I want a promotion, but my manager is not. They're putting it in their manager's seat. And the way someone told me is, you cannot be in a car and someone else is driving and you're saying, well, they are not turning in the direction I want to turn in. Well, you're in someone else's car and they're the ones driving. So if you really want to, go your own track in your own career, be the driver. Be the driver. Learn the skills. Like Dr. Tyre said, you can learn it within your current role, which I've done when I wanted to switch out of being in the hospital. I was working as a critical care pharmacist in the ICU, but I wanted to do more. I wanted to do something else. And I would tell my boss, can I join the nursing quality improvement team? Sometimes we feel like some things were too high for it. You can come down to, can I help improve the process of the parking team? What you're learning is process improvement. Okay? So sometimes you have to go down to go back up. But in going down, you're learning a skill. And then that would apply to where you want to be. So I just wanted to share that. I'll let down add to that. And then we'll go to the last round of questions.
I was just going to add two things. The first one, I believe is similar to what we've already spoken about, is I would say if you want to pivot, it would be really helpful to talk to people that are already where you want to get to. And of course, there are various benefits of doing that. Number one, you want to get clarity that that's actually what you want to do, because it's the people that are doing it that will probably know the new field or area best. So talk to them so that you have clarity. And the second reason as well is just so that you know how to tailor your experience, your resume to what you want to pivot to. And similar to what has been mentioned already, you really need to focus on transferable skills. Because I'm just remembering my own story, how I said I transitioned from manufacturing or food processing to tech. And of course, my first experience in tech was an internship with, I mentioned Dell Technologies. And prior to that, of course, all I had on my resume was, I was working with heat exchangers that were used to process oil, things like that. But when I spoke to people that were in tech, they actually gave advice on how I could refine what I wrote on my resume, because they provided feedback that, for example, heat exchangers, which is an equipment used in the production line, people in tech may not know what that is, right? So rather than saying heat exchangers and putting all this technical jargon on your resume, talking to people would help you know how best to tailor what you have on your resume to better suit the new role you're applying for. And the second thing I wanted to mention is to really leverage LinkedIn. If you're trying to pivot, of course, after you update your resume, also update your LinkedIn, right, with those transferable skills, and be active on LinkedIn. Like, literally use LinkedIn to sell yourself. If you're doing personal projects, that's actually something I'll recommend as well. If you're trying to pivot to something, you can pick on a personal project that would help you to be marketable. Because funny enough, I actually did meet a software engineer that was working at Google. And he told me how he got his job at Google, and I was amazed. Of course, he had experience working in Goldman Sachs, but he told me he also did a personal project where I'm sure people here are familiar with Southwest Airlines, how it's open seating. So usually how early you check in will determine your boarding position, which will determine how early you enter the plane. So, and usually check-in opens 24 hours before departure. So rather than, I think he said there are times he would have flights that are like maybe as early as 4 a.m., which means that check-in opens up 4 a.m. the previous day. You don't want to be setting an alarm to wake up at 4 a.m. to check in. So he actually used this programming, whatever, I'm not a software engineer, I can't remember what it's called, but he wrote a code to automatically check him in when it was time for check-in. And he actually put that on his resume. So that's actually one of the things that he said the Google hiring manager really capitalized on during the interview. So if you want to pivot, also ask yourself, what personal projects can I pick up on and sell, or either sell myself on or maybe post on LinkedIn. And the reason I'm saying leverage LinkedIn a lot is I actually have a friend that got a job with Dell Technologies by commenting on someone's post. Like, I know that sounds absurd. Sorry, I'm going to be done soon. But my point is, like, really post your the work you're doing. Be active. If you see things that people are doing, comment as well to encourage them. And the last thing I want to say is leverage LinkedIn. I know I sound like a broken record, but I'm just thinking back at even how I got this job I currently have. I didn't apply. A recruiter reached out on LinkedIn. And that's literally how I got it. So that's just why I want
So if you do not have an active LinkedIn page, get one. Even if you're in, I find that in healthcare, people just focus on, I'm going to see my patient, I'm in clinic, who cares? The way I moved from the hospital to my current role, which I really wanted to do, was via LinkedIn. I'm sure I was just looking for something else pharmacists could do, and this industry was really interesting to me. I reached out to someone on LinkedIn, and she told me everything. I'm like, wow, this is the job for me. And she's ended with, well, we're not hiring right now, but when we're hiring, I'll let you know. And when they were hiring, she let me know. She interviewed me and hired me for the job. And here I am 6 years later. I'm still in that company. So we'll go around with last words for people in the house. I know we've started from networking to resumes to interviews to pivoting. As Christians, there's a lot of, pray and leave it in God's hands. How have you been able to combine your faith with your career journey? Just practical steps, because, we need both, right? You can't just apply and click send and say, I'm fasting and praying, and you're not following up, you're not talking to anyone. How have you been able to apply your faith to your career journey? And we'll go through that to round this up. We'll start with Joy.
I think we definitely need the balance of the natural and the supernatural. I think for me, the Bible, there's a passage that says, write the vision, make it plain. I start with a plan. We'll pray, plan, and there's also a verse that says,
You can paraphrase.
okay, it talks about, as, like he orders our steps. Like, we make the plans and he orders our steps. So how I balance that is, I plan, I pray, I plan, I do, and I let God direct me. So we definitely have to, basically the gist of it is involve God in the doing. We need to take a step, move, do, and pray and let God direct you.
Amen. All right, Pastor Lai.
Yeah, so I'll say one thing. For me, it's been whatever your hand finds to do it with all your heart. Sometimes a lot of people are looking for what your heart wants to do. If your heart has not found what it wants to do, right? The one that your hand has found, just do it and do it well. And I'll tell you a good example. So I said that I had my first degree in economics, but I knew I didn't want to go in this economics line. I knew it wasn't for me from first class. I just did that. So I'm the only one here who probably schooled in Nigeria for my university bachelor's. Okay, so I took the first class and I knew, no, this cannot be me, so, but I still wanted to go through the process because in Nigeria, you can't just say you want to change your class or change your course. Maybe you just put in one, or you just withdraw from the university and start afresh, right? So I started, and then by the time I finished, I knew I wanted to pivot into something else. Let me just fast forward. I did communications, did media, went to do voiceovers, doing all of that. And then I got to the US, and I was looking for a job. So the first job I got was at Uber, because I could work. So I got a job at Uber in customer support. Now, I didn't have to, call anybody or pick calls. It was more of responding to emails. So I responded to like 200 emails per So all those guys all those emails you get from Uber when somebody, they didn't pay you or maybe they did deliver the food, I'll send emails, and then maybe when I want to give free credit to somebody that can call you, say, oh, I fixed your issues, and take $20 for and all of that.
Okay.
So
you didn't tell us.
so, but I knew that this is customer support. Like, your time here is, you have a degree, you went to school, this is not you, but I just did it with all my heart. And I said, you know what, God, in 6 months, I want to leave this role. I want to move to the next one. So I did that for 6 months. They were paying me $18.50 an hour for that job. But what I did in those 6 months was, if they say, oh, there's extra work to be done, let me do it. Oh, there's something you want to do, I'll do it. Oh, we need somebody to volunteer for so. Oh, I'll volunteer. So I was just working and doing it. Of course, I wasn't missing church. I wasn't missing church.
Thank you.
I was coming for service. I was coming for rehearsals. I was doing all of that. So I wasn't working to the point I couldn't attend service, right? But I was doing it with all my heart. But it wasn't what my heart wanted to do. But as I was doing that, what that was helping me to do was to understand user experience, customer experience. So by the time I was in that job, I moved to the next role, and then I started volunteering again. Everybody on the job is like, well, you didn't pay me for that, so I'm not going to do it. But I would keep volunteering, and then a new role opened up, and they needed somebody who had experience for all the things I'd been volunteering for. And so I had to move to another role. So I moved 3 roles in Uber in the space of 3.5 years, right? But this is the catch. When I got into my master's program, as I was working at Uber, I was going for evening classes doing the master's program because I realized this economics degree is not going to cut it, and I want to move into tech or something better, right? And as I was doing that degree program, I realized that there was an aspect of the program that I liked, which was more tilted towards product management, right? Because almost all the people in my class today are user experience designers, user interface designers. The guy I said I referred, it was a job as a designer, but I wanted to do product management. I want to just sit back. So every class assignment we had, I was working at that role. Like, okay, but I was still doing my customer, whatever, and at Uber. But then 3.5 years later, I got a job as a product manager. Again, you don't need to have all the experience to apply for a job. All those things they say about 10 years, 8 years, don't believe them. It's a lie. Because the job I got, they said 8 years experience. Of course, I have the experience now. I've been working on my job. I've been watching YouTube. I've been learning from Udemy. I've been watching everything, upskilling, watching videos. And so when I said, and then I applied for the job, and then I got the job. I was pinching my wife at night, like, is it true? So
Thank God.
do what your hand finds to do with all your heart. What your heart wants to do, it will come.
Amen. Do it. Love that. Love that. Okay, Dr. Tayo. Last words.
So I think there's a mix of folks here, folks new in their career, some with little experience. What I would tell you guys is, look, if you're not at the seat of any table, then you're probably on the menu. So your job is to get off the menu and get a seat at the table. Obviously, that comes through time too as well, right? As I'm speaking to you, fine, I know I'm on the seat on several tables, but I'm sure I'm also on the menu on several tables too as well. But the goal is always to get off, the menu list, get on the seat, make sure you're influencing decisions, you're shaping conversations, that should be the goal for everybody. Everybody must have that goal. Everybody must aspire to do that because that's also how you evolve. You guys, we've talked about upskilling. That's part of it, building those soft skills. How do you, if you can't influence somebody, who is going to let you lead a team? So those are the kind of things you guys need to be exercising those muscles. Church is a very, very good social platform for that, right? I think somebody said, every Sunday try and talk to somebody new. I think it's a good aspiration to have. Only time will tell if it's practical, but you can still try it, right? You shouldn't always stop. Just try things. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Then you come back again. You tinker a little bit with the strategy and try again. Life is mostly trial and error for the most part, right? It's always good to have a roadmap, but you shouldn't be too rigid in the roadmap because life will always throw some nasty things at you. So you just need to be able to maneuver. But the roadmap is important because it gives you a frame of reference, right? Which it's kind of like a guide of how you want to progress in your career, how you want to meet people, how you want to marry, how you want to raise kids, and all that kind of life's lesson. I think I'll stop here for now.
Thank you. Down.
So I'll just say, just adding to what everyone else has said, we spoke about networking. Please network. It helps a ton in the job search process. Because just thinking back at my own career, I think it's only 2 jobs I've gotten so far by applying online. Most of the other jobs were by attending conferences or maybe making sure my LinkedIn was on par so that recruiters reach out. So network, right? And even after you get the job, focus on also being excellent at the job. I know that, of course, with every job comes with challenges, and that's fine, right? But you just need to, of course, keep on talking to people. There are times I've actually had to reach out to people from other teams within my company to maybe find out how they're doing certain things so that I can implement on my team. Also, making sure you're proactive. You don't have to wait for your manager to tell you to do something before you do it. There are times, like even in addition to what your manager asks you to do, you are proactively thinking or finding problems that you could solve. So make sure you're excellent, because I feel that's a way of like even like doing ministry in your career. Be excellent at what you do. Be excellent at what you do. So that's just what.
Amen. And then I'll say my last words are, how Paul said, the grace of God on my life wasn't in vain. I labored more than them all. I think that's been key for me. Like, I do extra. Even I know. And I hate being average. It's like, oh, we are all supposed to do this. I don't want to be part of the all. I have to do more. And the grace of God is not at waste. I know, I'm on a call and people know I'm not the average person. And my evaluations have not said otherwise. I know I am a high performer. You have to shoot to be that. I think, like Dan was saying, be excellent at your job. Christians cannot be lazy. Like, let it not be called in your name that your boss is trying to assign something and they're like, nope, nope. No, let them say, I know you've been overworked, but I still know you're the one that can do this. That's how it should be. We're not just Christians in church shouting hallelujah, amen, hallelujah, amen. And then you get to work on Sunday and you're like, oh God, they've given me work again. If you're not working, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to do? So that's my final word for us. Let's go and be Christians. Let's show them how it is, and let's not let the grace of God on our lives be in vain. Let's work at that. Well, thank you. That would end this session. We'll take like a 5-minute break if you want to grab a drink or anything. Please use the Slido link to put your questions together. We will have a time for questions. So we'll take about 5 minutes to get the next panel up. Thank you so much.
folks for our next section up as we get ready. Minister Bumi, Dr. Deji Botosho, Dr. Tayo Oladuni, waiting up here for y'all. Please have a seat, sir.
No, there's one there.
Okay. All right. Well, first of all, can we please celebrate the last panelists for all their wisdom and all their nuggets, like everything they shared. Really, really good stuff. And we should definitely. I had so many questions that I wanted to ask, and just to extract more from them, right? But I'm sure we'll do more of it. So now we're going to be talking about money, and again, the goal here is to really share very practical things around money. I tell people wealth building, wealth creation, it's a very boring but it requires consistency. This day and age, a lot of there's so many things that are out there where people want to, as they say in this modern day parlance, they want to hammer, But just the process is very steady. It's very consistent, and I just want us to just explore, just from our different experiences, what we've been able to do, and how we can all get started around, some very basic personal finance ideas. So let's start out with the very first topic around budgeting and a spending plan. Would love to, actually, before we do that, let's you already introduced yourself. Let's have these two gentlemen introduce themselves.
My name is Deji Botosho. Most people call me Botosh. I'm a physician during the day or in the morning, and a businessman for most part of the day and at night. I focus on real estate investment and general matters. Whatever comes my way.
My name is Bumade Kube. I'm a dentist. I've been a business owner for probably going on a little over a decade. If there's anything about money, if I'm sitting on this panel, it's because I probably had a couple, maybe millions of dollars walk through my hands. I don't consider myself an expert, but at least I've had the distinct opportunity of being able to channel funds, make it and channel it in places that I think is useful. So I'm hoping that I can at least share some of my experiences with money.
Oh, me. So Moyo Mamora, of course, I pastor here at KingsWord, but also I work in investment banking, which, is high finance in the US, but then also have multiple real estate investments and also ancillary real estate companies. So whether that's property management, general contracting, and also like a investment management type organization as well. So been an investor right now since 2003 is when I started like really learning about personal finance concept, investing ideas, and in the 23-year period, like Dr. Bumi said, I've had multiples of millions flow through my hands, flow through my bank account, and I have lost hundreds of thousands. Of thousands. As a personal story, there was one time, maybe 2 years, I think it was 3 years ago, I thought about my life and like how much money I'd lost in like the prior 1 year. And I said, if I took that money, I could have bought a Rolls Royce, brand new. And at least I'll be driving the Rolls Royce now, But here I am, sustain those types of losses. So a lot to share about those experiences. So let's start with the most basic thing. We always hear about personal finance. We always hear about budgeting, having a spending plan. Would love to get maybe started with you, Dr. Tayo. Like, what's your approach to managing your own personal finances at home?
I mean, we just went through tax season, right? So that's a good way to kind of understand the inflows and outflows of your personal finances. However, you don't want to spend more than you earn or more than you bring in. That's a recipe for disaster, right? You typically should have like a budget for. You typically should have a budget for, household expenditure, right? Your mortgage. Those are like big ticket items, like your mortgage, your car note if you do have a car loan, obviously food for kids, clothing and feeding and all that, So those are things that should be, budgeted and accounted for. You should also have some discretionary money, right? Which, you can, that will not hurt your savings commitment. But I think the most important thing is you should have savings, right? And saving, people think that it's when you start making some, particular sum of money, that's when you should start saving. No. You should start saving now. If it's $10, you're set aside a piece of it, a percentage of it. Is consistency that matters. It's not, it's the consistency of it. And it's after time you will now realize that, wow, you've seen the growth. Obviously, if you're putting in investment vehicles like an ETF, right, or some kind of, mutual fund where it compounds. So now you see the power of compounding, the consistency and the power of compounding. You'll be amazed in 10 years. You yourself, you'll be shocked by what you're seeing in your brokerage account. Obviously, it's easy to, say some of these things. When it comes to brokerage, financing, we can't have that kind of, we can have the conversation, but you guys might need to have like a one-on-one. Obviously, do your own research, but talk to people that also know about these things so that you can really understand the value, right, of these things. And there is serious value. And the most important thing is actually starting early. I wish I knew this in my 20s, honestly, Obviously, I didn't. I started in my 30s, so I've left like 10 years of wasted opportunity, right? that 10 years, if you were putting $500, say in an ETF, I don't know what the math is. Is it in 10 years, what, $500,000 or so, or something like that, if you're putting 500 every month? It's some
I'm doing the math for you.
Yeah, it's some ridiculous amount of money. I can't remember.
So if you put down $500 a month at an 8% return rate at 10 years, you'd have $1 million.
It's $1 million. I mean, these are things, obviously, I can't go back in time, but I kind of hit myself on the head sometimes why I wasn't, privy to this type of forum where I could get this type of information. And really, make some, I thank God we're still doing well, but, we could be better, right? And that's what we should all aspire to anyways.
Yeah. So I want to ask the same question to you, Dr. Deji, about just like your approach to spending plan, budgeting, things of that nature.
Hello? Okay, can you hear me? Yeah, I think Tayo said some important things. For me, I, like Tayo too, started a bit, not too late, but again in the 30s, because there was no opportunity. But the strategy has always been, I don't have a particular order, but I always go with that in terms of what's available to spend this month, what's available to invest, and a very significant part of me that I don't play with is giving, right? That's always been an approach. In my budget, every single month, apart from giving in church, tithes and offering, I believe in that aspect that, and I just learned it from childhood from my father, I would say, that a giver will always have. So one thing I always tell people when people ask me about finances, about budget, and set some funds apart to give. And again, I know we're going to budget. Go and read about history about people that are wealthy or philanthropists. They give a lot. And again, if you look at the government tax code and all these things too, they create that avenue, charity, it helps you, taxes and all those kind of things. But again, one of the important things is, like Tayo said, don't spend more than you earn. I'm one of those people that really believe in credit cards, right? Yeah, it has its own opportunity, but you have to use it well. Don't spend, don't have a credit card that you know how much you earn, you overspend on your credit card. Have a way of how am I going to pay my credit card every month or every week? How am I not going to spend more than what I earn? Because again, I'm sure we're going to get into that. A significant part of being okay or being wealthy or being rich is your ability to have leverage, right? Leverage, these are lessons that, I wish I learned when I was in my 20s. Maybe I'll be like a multi-millionaire now, right? Is that, most of the people that have done well that we all look up to is, these are all the principles they learn in terms of you have to have a budget, one, then don't spend more than what you earn, have the heart of giving, and also leverage. Personally, I'm one of those people, I believe so much in budget, but I don't let it be, that's what just shapes me, But again, certain percentages, can be attributed to what you want to spend every month. And again, I know, still staying on the principle of budget. I just believe that, and that's why I said it's all about percentages. As you grow in life, do you understand, your expenses are going to increase. Your wants, your needs, they are going to change. But again, as long as you have a definite plan on how you want to do it, this is the certain percentage I have to put towards my needs, my wants, and giving, I think you should be doing well. But like Tayo said, another important way you can know how you're spending your money, I know it's going to be late by then, is during your tax year, look at how you spent your money. And a very good thing, I think in the last 2 or 3 years, credit card companies have been doing now is that they give you a financial summary on how you spent your credit card, what percentage went into like your DoorDash, you know. So you will be so amazed. I mean, personal example I will tell you before I realized like maybe 4 years ago, there's a particular thing I get before I go into my office. And when I saw how much I was spending on it every morning and how much I spent the whole year, I said, no way. So I've changed my mind now. I've changed my principle. I'm not getting that thing every morning again because, you know, it was a significant money I could have used for something else. So, again, overhauling how you spend your money on a weekly, on a monthly basis, and setting a budget, I think is very important.
Yeah. Thank you so much. We're going to segue into talking about debt because you mentioned credit cards. But I want to say something personally, right? You've heard both of them talk about don't spend beyond what you make or earn. It seems like a very basic concept, but the illusion is because of credit card, because a credit card can act as a stopgap. So oftentimes it's difficult for you to know without you paying attention to it that you're spending more than you earn, right? Because, you know, a credit card company would give you a $10,000 credit limit, and maybe your net, you know, if, say, for example, you're earning $5,000 a month, and then there's something that takes you into like $6,000 a month, you're like, you know, I'll just put it on my credit card and I'll pay it off next month, you know, whatever, right? But honestly, that stuff is going to kill your financial path. And I use those words not lightly. And the other thing that's also worth, you know, noting is that, well, let me speak personally. I personally live below what I earn, right? So if you see me and you see my life now as it is right now, my brother and sister, I can bowl out more than you're seeing. Confirm. You know, we can. But we optimize primarily for investment in our household. The only thing I budget in my household is what we are investing. We pay the mortgage, we pay the utility bills and whatnot. But anytime money is coming into our account like this, you know, we're thinking about, okay, what's the next project? My wife tells me now, when are we going to rest? So we don't rest until we die. We invest forever, right? But we're consistently stretching to optimize. If you hear some of the conversations that we have just around spending, I mean, things that honestly should be trivial, we shouldn't be thinking about, we talk about it. That's how tight-fisted we are, you know, when it comes to spending, right? It's like, you know, I had to tell my wife one day, she was calling me, she's like, oh, I want to do something, it's $100. I said, please. And she was frantically calling me in the day, you know, to make that decision to spend. I said, please, never call me, you know, interrupt my day because you're asking me if you want to spend $100. Never, you know. But the point is, it's the mentality that we have in our household, right? That even though we can, if somebody stole $100 from my wallet or from my bank account, I would not know. Like, but we're still so diligent to the point whereby we're saying to ourselves that it's important for us to be very, very frugal, right? Because then when we keep it, we can actually do more with it. So let's talk about debt, right? Dr. Pumi, what do you have to say about debt?
What do I have to say about debt? You're asking a businessman about debt. So I'll approach debt from what I've observed and I've learned. So let's break it down. This is the United States of America, probably the most indebted nation in the world. And as such, it makes credit easily available to people. But it comes at a risk. One of the things I've learned and I've observed is that debt can be a leverage if you know how to use it very well, but it could also be a death nail or a death sentence. So that essentially the question becomes, is it really the debt
or the person using the debt. I'll share an example. So I read about a couple of business people, and I'll share one. Everybody knows him, J.D. Rockefeller, probably one of the richest men who's ever lived. And when he was growing his empire, his approach was that, you know what, he was able to use leverage to help him grow his business. But the one thing you typically wouldn't hear was he was very, very frugal, meaning he wasn't acquiring and taking on debt to floss, meaning he wasn't buying the latest horse in the stable or whatever. It was something that he was able to use to grow his business. Now, the reason why I think it's important for us to understand what is available and how you should approach it is because at the end of the day, it speaks to you. So I'll share a personal example. And I'm talking about an example of probably about 2 weeks ago. Someone reached out to me and they said, oh, you've qualified for whatever kind of available credit. So I'm like, let me even push it. Let me even see how much money they're going to make available to me. So we go back and forth, and they're like, you know what? Why are you 200 grand right now? And I'm like, I don't need 200 grand. And he still called me probably about 2 weeks ago. Now, the reality is, I've dealt with money. I know what is attached, and I know the strings that are attached. Obviously, I didn't bite. Now, if I was somebody who wanted to ball out, and I was like, maybe it's time to kind of show people a couple of things, I probably would have taken the 200 G's, and I'll come in.
And you buy a Ferrari.
I don't think I'll buy a Ferrari. I'll probably buy my Rolls Royce, okay? But all kidding aside, but that comes from understanding exactly what is around you, meaning you're always going to be solicited with money and credit and available credit. It's probably going to start with 1,000 or 2,000, and I can guarantee you, if you do this long enough, it's going to go into the millions. Don't be sucked into it, okay? Sometimes you can use it for leverage, but that comes from having understood, number one, what it is that you're going to be using it for, how you're going to be able to guarantee the return that you want to use it for, and what's your plan to pay it back. Now, why did I decide that I wasn't going to take that? I'm like, first off, I don't need it. Number two, I looked at the interest rate on it, and it was about 50%. And I said to myself, I'm like, okay, this is loan shark territory. So my point is, as you engage with the world around you, you've got to educate yourself about not just the money that they're giving you, but about what can you use the money for and how you can potentially use it for leverage. So that's my approach to debt, meaning it's going to be available, but it's not always for you. And at some point, if you don't think you have the skill, maturity, or understanding of handling it, please, by God, stay away. Okay? It's not your money. It is the bank's money, and they're going to come for it.
It's not your money.
It's not yours, okay?
They are going to come for it.
Can I share an example?
Yeah, go ahead.
Over the years in doing business, people solicit me all the time. And it's always fun when they're selling you. Usually it's the salesperson who comes to sell you, and they tell you about, it's going to do this for your business, and it's going to do this. Now, sometimes, once that person goes, okay, the next person that is coming for you is the collection guy, okay? And that one doesn't know your name. The guy who's coming to you knows your name, he knows your family's name, he knows just about everything about you. Once he makes that sale, he's gone, okay? Then you're left with the obligation, and then how to meet the obligation. The next person is going to be coming to meet you. He probably doesn't know your name, and the guy is just like, hey, I need to get paid. So I can't stress it enough. Be very, very wary of these guys. They are salespeople, and they do not have, in quote, your best interest at heart. However, you've got to be very smart about how to use it.
Yeah. Gotor, since you talked about leverage, and I know you take on a lot of debt.
Well, I don't know how this panel was chosen, but I can tell you, I've done business, or I'm doing business with the three of them. So they know me very well. So, I know the first session, I loved it, by the way. That's my life, networking, and let me quickly dive out.
Go ahead, yeah.
So you guys talked about LinkedIn. That's one thing that I know is missing in my life. And how did I get to know? I'll share it. I'm doing an executive MBA class now. And there's a whole class, 6 weeks on LinkedIn. Trust me. And when they told us the power of LinkedIn and people were sharing their story or what they were, I'm like, I've lost time. Like, what have I been doing? And like Deacon told me, he said, 2 or 3 people shared how they were not looking for a job, but someone saw their qualification. And these are physician executives. And they call like, oh, you're so qualified, a recruiter called them, there's a post going on here. And they just applied and they got a job. So please, I'm begging you, I know Daoud said it. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, I know you're not looking for a job. Just post it out there because who knows? There's someone somewhere that's just looking for someone to fill that post. Anyway, let me go back to the question. Yeah, leverage is very important. So, I don't know. I mean, we're a live stream, but yeah. I do real estate, and I would say it's one thing I did not just get into. It's like, I didn't know anything. I'm not a realtor. I didn't go to any real estate school. But you know what challenged me one day, and we've talked about networking. I think when Pastor Moyo came here, he shared some numbers, and he told us about, there are people in this church, and I'm going to share this story on how I got to real estate and how I've been doing leverage, right? So, without divulging too much information, that's in this church. I know a guy. I'm not sure if personal story. I was talking to him one day. I was a new attending physician, and he was, oh, what are you doing? I told him, and he told me, I earn more than a neurosurgeon. And a neurosurgeon then earned $500,000. And then I looked at the guy, like, for real? I couldn't believe. I'm like, oh, yeah. So I now okay. I now got closer to him. This guy gave me a table for real estate, and I've used this table for 12 years, and this table has never failed me. Will I say this guy is still in this church? I don't want to. He's shot around somewhere. What am I saying is that I got into real estate like maybe 10, 12 years ago, and he gave me one principle. He said, based on just what you are earning, just what I know you'll be earning, try and buy one property every year. You can do it. I looked at him, I'm like, for real? You must be joking. I won't say I bought one property every year, but I've used leverage based on what this guy taught me to do it, and I can say I've achieved almost what he has said. So, like Bumi was saying, your credit card, don't spend more than you can earn. Use leverage of the bank. Use leverage of people in your network. There are deals out there. But again, when you do one, I did one with my friend over there, and we made money, right? When I went back to him for another one, trust me, he didn't ask me. We didn't even sign the contract. I'm just telling you how good these things are. But again, your network is one of your leverage. Again, look at I don't want to say, let's look at our president, for example, right? Most of these rich men do is all about the leverage they have with the bank. By the time the bank knows you are creditworthy, you can do a business very well, they borrow you the money. And again, you can you can not have $1 million, but they are able to borrow you $1 million to do a deal. And that's been my own story. I'm not saying I'm doing deals of $1 million now, but maybe I'll get there. Right? But what I'm saying is that leverage is very, very important. You can't have all the money you need to do a deal. And again, like I said earlier, dedicate a certain percentage of your income to investment. I don't know what people want me to say about leverage because it's better than me in leverage. But what I'm just trying to say is that, and I'm saying this is, one of the things I learned from that young to old man and a lot of networking I do, one of the things I do too is that, trust me, if I know that I'm not, this is not bragging or humble bragging or boasting, if I know I'm doing better than Bumi, I'll still be friends with Bumi, but I'm looking for another friend that's doing better than me. Because again, that opens up your mind. It takes you to the next hundreds or thousands of dollars. Then I'm looking for people that are making millions, And before I end, I will share this story. I live, and I'm just sharing. I think we're supposed to be sharing. I live in a very good, expensive neighborhood. I didn't get there because I had the money, like 10 years ago. But when I was talking to a group of friends and they told me, and I went there, and, I can remember telling my wife first that that's where I want to move to. She laughed, like you have started again. So when I'm saying this thing, I moved there. Trust me, the way I talk, the way I interact just changed. Now I'm part of them. Like, we roll, and that's what leverage is not about the money. It's all about people you talk to, people you open your mind. I think Pastor K says this thing. When you are among a group of friends and they start calling you chairman, run away from them. Run to another group of friends because, again, you are just preparing yourself for the next level.
No, thank you so much. So, you can put your hands together. So, a couple of things, right? To just be more specific on debt. You've probably heard you've heard about consumer debt, and you've heard about what's investment or business debt. Consumer debt is bad. Bad. I said this before, consumer debt is like a cancer, right? Consumer debt, so your credit today, rates have dropped a little bit, but credit cards are in the mid to high 20%. Interest rate. That's if you have good credit, you are in the mid-20s. So what that means is if you have a $10,000 credit card that you max out, right, every year, your interest rate, on average, is about 25%. Now, here's what, now 25% is $2,500 on that $10,000. That's $200 a month. Here's what's dangerous, even more dangerous about it. Credit cards are not amortized, on a straight line. They'd say you should pay only very small. So you can hold that $10,000 debt for years. And you're going to be paying $2,500 a month. A year. So as much as you can, be afraid is the word to use your credit card to buy anything. Be afraid to use it. Now, the other one, the way you always have to think about interest rates when you want to spend or use a bank's, money or something, right, is you always have to do the math of, is the benefit of what I'm going to get from this money, does it outweigh the cost of the money? Now, if there's a deal that I can do that I know that I can make 100%, and the only money that is available to me is my credit card, is 25%, all day, every day, right? Now, we have to be careful not to deceive ourselves. Because as I've said that, some people have, you've calmed down now. You're like, crypto, Bitcoin. That's probably some people, that's probably what happened to you right now. That, okay, Bitcoin will double by next year now. 25%, 1 plus 1 is 3. Let's do. But what you need to understand is that's why I said And the only way you can know, right? Now, if you read any investment document, they will say past performance does not indicate future performance. However, you can have a degree of confidence from looking at the history of certain instruments. Can Bitcoin double next year? Yes. But in the last 5 years, what has happened to Bitcoin? It has gone up and down, up and down, up and down. So God bless you if, you go and buy Bitcoin today with your credit card, and then Bitcoin loses 30 or 40% next year, right? Then you'll now be living in hopium. That it will come back. But guess what? Your credit card company doesn't send you. They are still collecting their money. Do you understand what I'm saying? So the same thing happens even when you're taking a car note. Sometimes people want to buy a car. And I've seen people, car notes, the interest rates range from everything from as low as 5 or 6% today, if you have very good credit and you're credit worthy. I've seen car notes that they're offering 20% interest rates. My brother, my sister, Uber, take the bus, take the train, right? Like, you have to ask yourself, is the benefit of a 15% interest rate for my car am I really getting that benefit by buying this car? And if you must buy the car, you don't need to buy a Mercedes that you've been dreaming of because you feel like the Mercedes is what fits my status today. It goes back to the first point that we made was live below your means. Yes, you feel like I'm a Mercedes guy. Honestly, in my mind, I feel like I'm a Ferrari guy. I can buy a Ferrari if I wanted to buy a Ferrari. I can. But if I buy a Ferrari, we will all be sleeping in the Ferrari. We must be sleeping in that Ferrari every day. I'll tell my wife that, one day a week, I'm sleeping in the garage. Because it doesn't make sense. You should only spend the money like that when it's not going to be something you are thinking about too much. Do you understand what I'm talking about, right? So you learn to reduce yourself in the eye of yourself. No, I know these days we say, I know my worth. Yeah, we all know our worth. Yes, we know it. But at the same time, don't know your worth too much for your own, financial progress. So I just wanted to make that. And then the last point on debt is, now, you can use debt wisely. Because in the history of time, there are certain things that have been proven to be good, right? If you have a real estate investment, for example, that on average is going to return about 12, 13%, and you have a lender who is offering you 6% on that loan, it's a no-brainer. It's stable. The history of humankind, over the last 400, 500, 600,000 years has shown us that real estate would always return that way. Then you can do that. The stock market over the last 50 years has averaged about 8% return. If you find somebody who can loan you money at 6%, and you can invest in the stock market in a diversified portfolio, in some ETF of some sort, yes, that makes sense. But not that you borrow money and you say, I want to go and do crypto, or I want to go and do, this one or that one. It has to be something that has a historical track record, and that's how you should think about debt. Otherwise, ladies and gentlemen, stay away from debt. If you have debt right now, aggressively kill it. Aggressively pay it down. Aggressively pay it down. Like, let it affect your sleep. Go and get an extra job. Drive Uber. So the extra income, you can use it to pay it down. Do you understand what I'm talking about? Because if you don't have that type of mentality, honestly, it would be difficult for you to, go ahead. Yes.
Yeah, so the one comment I want to make is, oftentimes when people, myself included, we don't really know how to think about money. And it's because no one has really educated us. So he did say something, and time, okay? There's something about time and money that a lot of people don't put in perspective. We talked about the guy, Ty was talking about, if you had invested $500 every month for the last 10 years, you're probably going to get about $1 million. The reverse also works in terms of debt. Meaning,
yeah.
If you start to accumulate debt over time, it's going to work to your disadvantage. Now, the one thing a lot of people don't think about is when you're trying to think about your lifestyle. My wife and I, we have this conversation all the time. I said, honestly, I'm not afraid of making money because I know I can make as much money as I want to make. The one thing I'm afraid of is lifestyle creep, okay? Because it happens even to the best of us. You realize that, you know what, I just made $1 million this year, then I have to kind of start balling at $1 million. Everything Pastor Moyo is saying about living below your means, it's not just about now. It's even when you start to make the big bucks and the super big bucks, how are you going to keep your lifestyle in check? I forget what law it's called, but the summary of it is a luxury once enjoyed becomes a necessity. Meaning, say for example, we talked about cars when we started. Okay, I had a Beta too. I'll tell you the story about my Beta. So my wife came to do an interview in Chicago, and this was in 2008, 2009. I hated my car. That car was, I was embarrassed every time I drove the car.
We pushed it at one point.
No, that was on that one. It was one before that one. Okay, so the weird thing was, I come into Chicago, and obviously I'd known Pastor Desir for a minute, so I saw his car, and I kind of felt good about my life.
I wish I could find a picture of that Pastor Dosier's car. Wow.
I'm like, okay, it's rough, but you know what? It made me feel good. Now, the reason I say that is because over time, we tend to forget that time is your biggest leverage, especially when you educate yourself. I can guarantee you, I don't care what financial state you are today, if you educate yourself and you factor in time,
and use time to work to your advantage, I guarantee you, there is no financial goal that you have that you will not be able to achieve. However, as you start to achieve those goals, the lifestyle creep, meaning you say to yourself, well, how did I start talking about my car? So that car that was a beta, I'm like, okay, I'm way beyond that now. Now, I don't even want to drive a car that doesn't have heads-up display. I'm like, yeah, I mean, that car doesn't have heads-up display. I'm like, how am I driving that car? Now, this was me probably, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago that I was even lucky if the car had an AC. My point being, as time progresses, we tend to attribute some form of, something that I deserve. And you're like, oh, you know what, I deserve this. Should I be honest with you? Nobody deserves anything. I mean, it's just the reality. If you drove a Beta 10 years ago, trust me, if you put me in a Beta today, I will do just as well. I'll do just as fine. I'm going to get to my destination. But we sometimes don't put that kind of discipline on ourselves to say that you really shouldn't let your lifestyle creep. Now, obviously, my wife will say, hey, come on, you're working this hard. We need to enjoy it. At some point, obviously, you've got to enjoy exactly what you're working for, but you've got to be able to keep your lifestyle in check, even as you grow in your ability to earn.
Yep.
I just wanted to...
I want to, so two things we've talked about. Number one is live below your means, have a spending plan, have a budget just so you can understand where the dollars are going and where there are excesses in your life. The second thing we talked about is about aggressively tackling consumer debt and wise use of debt, right? And how to think about the use of debt. But when you were speaking, you said something that I've been processing it again, and it's true. You know this, right? But intuitively, like if you invested $500 a month, $500 a month, every month for 10 years, consistently at an 8% return rate, that's $1 million. And I'm thinking to myself, I remember exactly where I was in 2015. Exactly where I was in 2015. So you mean to tell me that stable investment. And for many of us here, I repeat that, Ms. Jaren, I want to ask you a question about that. Because here we are in 2025 now. Now, we talked about that $500 and we talked about it in 10 years. In 2035, you are going to remember this day. Every single person here, you would remember this day. Maybe you're older, but you have kids. You will remember this day. Your kids will likely remember this day. Let's increase that number to 20 years. Just $500. In 20 years, that's $3.4 million. In $500, that's just, of course, there's inflation, so $500 is nothing, right? So if I adjust this savings amount for inflation to keep up, the money will be significantly more. Do you understand what I'm talking about? You remember where you were 20 years ago? You see what I'm saying? Because $500 in 10 years from today is not $500 today because there is inflation. So it's reducing in value, right? So $500 in 20 years is kind of like investing, you would have to like maybe be investing $1,000 to keep up with that rate. Do you understand what I'm talking about, right? Now, let me do the inflationary adjustment for this, 10, 20 year, just so I'm doing the math here. So assuming inflation is what? Let's even be conservative. Let's call it 2%. So at an 8% interest rate, I'm geeking out. This is kind of like my MBA finance in my head now. So 8% is your interest rate. Assuming you're adjusting your contribution by 2% inflation, that means your total is about 10%, right? Is to keep up with what you're investing. Do you understand what I'm saying? So meaning, if I invest $500 a month today, that's 2% of $500 is what? $10. That means in next year, to keep up with the same $500 value, I have to invest $510. Are you tracking right now? Okay, so let me show you what that does in 20 years, right, with your money. Your money would be $4.3 million in 20 years. Now, someone says, $500, where am I going to get $500? Okay, let's make it $250. Okay, they said 100. Okay, 100. So 100 times, that's okay. So if I did $100, that's about $865,000 in 20 years that we can have. But you increase, exactly. So I want to ask you a question because I actually contend with the idea that $500 is too much because I can probably tell you 5 different ways you can make an extra $500 a month with your current lifestyle. So I don't think it's too much. But let me ask you the question, what would you say to someone, right, given what you know now in that statement, how can they start? Where do they start from?
Today, so we're paying for all kinds of. Think about your entertainment. That is probably where I would cut a lot of the savings from. I mean, when I was in college, I was doing all kinds of. When I was in college, you were in college with us too. You were getting involved. I was going to bars for sure. I was having a good time. But when I think, I'll tell you a story. When I graduated my doctorate, I was about maybe 29 years old. So I was at those apartments, Crately. I called my dad. I was like, man, I've been wasting my time. Because I went to school in London initially, and I had a swell of a time there. And I was telling my dad, oh my God, I've wasted so much time. A lot of the things I thought was important was not important at all. At all. A lot of it was just peer pressure, obviously hanging out with the wrong crowd, right? And my dad said one thing that, was profound. It was like, now you've grown up. He was laughing. It was like, wow. It was almost like he felt a sense of relief now. Okay, that man, this guy has actually grown up, Sha. And I say this to say that the lifestyle, obviously that kind of lifestyle had to be funded. Those were where I needed to channel. Those funds is what I could have channeled into a lot of the vehicles instrumental vehicles we were talking about today. But again, lack of knowledge, lack of mentorship, not associating yourself with the, right people of, the right mindset that could really, advance your future and, move you forward. That's obviously those were what the guardrails were, at least for me. So to answer your question pointedly, a lot of the excesses were mostly around entertainment, and that is exactly what I would cut off to be able to build a better, future for myself and family.
Pimo, I think you whispered it. Personal experience. So one of the things, first of all, when I was looking for a job, I was very clear. Any job I'm going to get that's not going to allow me to come to church regularly, I'm not going to take it. I know I'm a doctor, but I made up my mind, like anything that's going to tie me there, not come to church regularly, it's a no-no. Then the second thing I've learned is we become very comfortable once we have a job. A side also, it's important. Whatever you want to call it, a side gig, a side also, something you like, turn it into money. I'm sure there's everybody that's here that has something they like, and from that, 500 is a lot, but trust me, even if you do that side also, maybe twice or 3 times a week for a month, it can generate this $500 and you put it into what Tayo was talking about. Because again, the idea that, I'm a church guy, I just said that money comment. Yeah, money comment, but you have to really do some work before money comes your way. I think for real wealth, right, you can't just go to a 9-to-5 job and you say that is it and you think you'll be all right. I mean, you take care of your family, but try to think outside the box. I mean, you can do, if you push yourself just a little more, you can do more than you're doing now. I mean, be creative. I remember, like I said, I work hard, I can tell you that. So, I mean, I was working on one deal and I sent an email to this guy around 3 a.m. So he saw me, I called him the next day. He's like, this guy, do you sleep? I said, oh boy, I do sleep. But this is important. Why am I saying that? I'm just sharing my own personal, views and examples in life is that we always think, oh, I can't do this, I can't do this. Just push yourself a little extra. And mine is that it adds up. The earlier you start, the better. And I'm just going to add one more thing to it. Again, in this church, and that's why a lot of people have blessed me in this church. They don't know, and they don't know why I'm close to some people, and I just like talking to some people. I would say this particular one was Ben. I think I've shared it before. When I became an attendant, Ben, I guess maybe he just felt like this guy maybe doesn't know what he's doing. Maybe it's not idea. Maybe I didn't know what I was doing then, I don't know. But Ben just came to me and he asked me about, 3 months into an attending, that do you have college funds? I said, what is college funds? Trust me. I said, what's college funds? I said, I have one daughter and I'll take care of her. Ben said, no, it doesn't work that way. Or no, it doesn't work that way. He asked me the second day. I said, Ben, what are you second week? Ben actually came to my work, right, and set up these college funds for my kids. Trust me, this thing is worth hundreds of thousands today. So again, I'm just saying this thing, all these things, 200, 500 that we talk about, it adds up. But again, leverage, apart from the consumer, people leverage, especially people started this conversation. And I was telling him there was a special event I had to go today. But when I looked at that event, I was just going to sit down there again and I looked at my life when they talked to me about, you were going to talk here. And I saw what I've gained from this church, from people. I was like, no, I have to be here. Because again, you're coming to church every day, you are sitting beside some people, but you don't know what they carry and how much they can impact in your life. And, the earlier conversation, they talked about it, the first time you talk to Bumi, you might not like him. Maybe he was not giving you attention. And they're very saucy in that church. They don't talk to people. It happens. It might just be a bad day that Bumi wanted to catch up with someone else. Try again. You know what you're looking for. There's so much resources in this church. There's so much in terms of career, in terms of various businesses, various ideas you can get. And you just have to keep at it. That's all I can say. Yeah.
I have a question quickly. Do you guys have 401k in your employment? Are you all maxing it? Maxing it? Whatever, and capitalizing on the extra that the company contributes to your 401k? If you guys are not, you guys should. Again, sometimes people think I have to think about today. And I tell my wife, I'm not really concerned about today, we are fine. I'm concerned about tomorrow and next tomorrow. And that's what all this conversation, we're all sitting down. It's not about today. That's why the concept of time is important. It's not today. We're not thinking about how we're going to eat. We will eat today. But we want to continue eating tomorrow and next tomorrow, And we want to eat what we're used to eating, what we've become a little accustomed to. And Bumi was right. We have to be very careful, to manage that. It's a management. You have to figure out a way to manage it so that you don't continue expanding and growing that, that pot, right?
Yeah, I was going to make a quick comment that usually when people talk about money, what I've found with the money is it's often a reflection of your growth, of your person. And the more I think about it, that the one thing I know for a fact is I've never met a stupid billionaire. They just don't exist. You sit down with these guys, they may not know everything about the world, but you go into that one field, and I'm talking about if it's Jeff Bezos, so I don't even care. But they are extremely knowledgeable and they are very, very well developed. And I'll be very honest with you that when you talk to most people who don't have that kind of resources or net worth, you kind of don't see that same level of knowledge, engagement, and skill development. So that essentially when Deji was talking about if you've got a 9-to-5 job and is encouraging you to do a side gig, I mean, when my wife was in a 9-to-5 job, I was on her every time. I mean, I was always on her. Now, she was comfortable, but I'm like, there's no way you're going to be able to grow if you don't step out of your comfort zone. And the reality, as great as your job is, as secure as it is, it's probably not going to give you everything you need for growth and development. It's just not designed that way. I'm an employer of labor. Why do I employ people? I need you to get me a certain result. If you get me that result, I'll pay you. If you don't get me that result, I'll kick you out. But the reality is, when they design these jobs and these roles, they're not thinking about your personal growth. They're thinking about the growth of their business. Now, for you to be able to make wealth, or for you to be able to at least be able to grow your wealth, you've got to be able to think about your own personal growth, which involves your dreams, your skill sets, your weaknesses, and be able to channel those things. And I guess what we're trying to charge you today is to say, you've got to be able to find environments and people and things that get the best out of you. Once you're really good at doing that, you would start to see your network and probably your net worth start to grow significantly. So I think it's just worth underscoring. Now, for some people, it's a matter of, so how does this happen? Because I've heard people say, oh, I go to that church, they don't help people, and da. I mean, you hear all those kinds of things. Deji kind of alluded to it that sometimes when it comes to engaging people, you've got to be deliberate. I think I talked about the fact that there's nobody on this panel that if I had to have a conversation with, that my ears are not perked up. And I've known them for almost 20 years. I've known them for greater than 15 years. But my ears are still perked up because I realize that there's some value that they have that I don't have and that could potentially make my life better. If everybody engaged with everybody in church with that intention that they've got something that I have, that I need, that I could benefit from, and sometimes it's vice versa, I think that that growth starts to compound, just like your money starts to compound. I just felt it was important to speak to that.
Thank you so much for sharing. I want us to take questions now. So I see there are questions that have come in on Slido. Please put your hands together for everyone here. And I feel like I want to invite, or maybe I'll just roam with the mic or ask the people who were in the last session to speak to this. So let me first hit the first one, right? About, okay, somebody put on here, oh, what are some ways to make the extra $500? I'll tell you what I'll do. If I were here and I had a regular 9-to-5 job, I don't have a 9-to-5 job. I have like a 9 to midnight job, and I still have a side gig on top of that, just so you know. But if I had a regular 9-to-5 job and I was looking for an extra $500 a month, I would drive an Uber and I'll make a little bit extra money. I would go find a side gig, maybe working at a grocery store on the weekends, and I'll do that. I would go flip pizzas with Papa John's or with Domino's. I'm not too big to do the extra to make money. So that's why I don't think it's right to say, I think that's actually a limiting mindset to say that, oh, you know what, maybe $500 is too much for some people. There are many ways you can make $500. Because if we take a grocery store job, I mean, Pastor Lai told you about him having, while he was in school, he worked at Uber customer service paying $18.50 an hour. For you to make $500 on that, all you just need to work is what? 40 hours in a month. So all he'd need to do is work 10 hours of that job in a week, and he can make the extra $500. So anyway, so that's the answer to that question. Another question around investments is what can return an average of 10% a year? That's actually too easy. Put that in ChatGPT. Just write ChatGPT. ETFs that have returned an average of 8+% in the last 10 years. It will spit it out. There are many. I mean, I did a simple Google search. There's some that were in the 20s, 20%, 30%. Average annual return in the next 10 years. So ladies and gentlemen, what we're talking about here is not hard. Now, we use a very simple calculation of $500 and 10% in 10 years. You can go practice that same and use 12 or 13%. A simple instrument, because that's one of the questions here is that what would you do? What investments can you do with $500? Well, number one, I can open up a brokerage account, put the $500 in there, and just decide I'm going to be buying one or two or three of these ETFs. Put it in ChatGPT, let it give you a few. Just pick 3 of those. and just buy it, or buy QQQ or buy spiders and just leave it in there. Or if all of that is way too much work for you, there are apps. There's somebody in this church. We had a conversation one-on-one a few years ago. We talked about this thing. I pushed her as well to stretch on her investing. And I think it was Wealthfront is one of those things. It's called a robo-advisor, right? So you set up an account. It would profile you, yada, yada, yada. And you just tell it how much you're going to be putting in there every month. And it can automatically just withdraw from your account so you're not even thinking about it. This girl showed me how much was in her account last year. I said, yeah? I had forgotten the conversation, but when, because it was an innocent conversation, but to see how much the money had grown in that time period, it was a shocker for me. So that's what I'll do. Those are very simple things that we can do. So anyways, let's hit on some of these questions. Another one is, Dr. Tai, there's one specifically for you. Someone's asking, is day trading a viable option? No. Please say it louder for the people in the back.
I've lost money on day trading. Is this thing televised, or is this thing online?
Should we,
Yeah, don't do that. It just distracts you from your 9 to 5, and obviously, if you start losing money, then mentally you're obviously or emotionally you're not happy, which could also show up in your your 9 to 5. So, I wouldn't advise it, to be honest. It's just too much time consuming. Emotionally, it's taxing.
And it's high risk.
And you're not good at it.
Yeah. And then statistically, the data shows that most day traders don't make money. That's just what the data shows, right? So I don't think
risky.
it's...
you can go from I don't know. Well, I guess it depends on what you're trading to, right? I've traded all kinds of stuff, from penny stocks to the NASDAQ, and the penny stocks are brutal. Negative 200, negative 100. It's hard to see when you open your brokerage account and all you see is red.
Yeah.
Red. And you have to put off a brave face at work and not think up. It's hard. Don't do it.
So, Down, this question is for you. What motivated you to pursue a master's in engineering management? Can you come up, please? And I'll be looking for... And Dr. Oladuni, there's a question for you here. You've worked in various industries. How did you navigate the transitions between them? So, yeah, you can use that mic.
All right. Okay. All right, I'll just stand over here. So I wanted to pivot. I mentioned that I was working in manufacturing as a production supervisor, and I wasn't really feeling it. I knew that I wanted to transition to roles in either product management or technical project management. So I began talking to people that were in tech and doing similar roles. So they spoke to me about what would help me easily pivot. So a lot of people that were doing product management or technical project management roles in tech had either MBAs or some form of engineering management degree. So that's where I ended up deciding, okay, I'll just get my master's in engineering management so that I could just make that pivot. So I hope that answers the question.
So just wait. Yeah, go ahead, Dr. Tayo.
Good question.
Yeah.
I think I've been very fortunate to start with. After my graduate school, I got a job with Accenture as a consultant. I met this young man on one of my trips on the airport, That gave me a good grounding into working in different industries, because this, when you're a consultant, you're project-based. You're not married to any industry. You will be working in this company, in this city for 3 months, You roll off that project, you're in another city for 6 months or 9 months. So he gave me a good grounding on how to ramp up on different projects, different initiatives, and obviously communicating with different set of people too. So it's almost everything kind of came full circle. It's, it was a good learning platform to be able to do multiple things without me actually even knowing that I was actually picking up those skills, in all fairness. And that's one of the reasons why I've been able to just move to different industries and just do what I do. Again, I also have the benefit of being a data scientist, which means, it's a hot field. It still continues to be a hot field. It was a hotter field even at the time. Not a lot of supply, and demand is very, very high. Everybody wants you. Everybody needs you. Everybody wants something from you. So, if you're in an environment where somebody is always needs something from you, you become very important. You become very influential really, really fast. And that is what has helped me, pivot, navigate industries, different roles, my career.
Right, thank you for that. I'm going to answer one of the other questions really quickly. So this one says, how do you navigate feeling unmotivated to continue to deliver excellence at your job when you're undercompensated and overdue for a promotion? Okay, so the first thing is you are not tied to any job, right? If a job is not allowing you do these two important things, because you have to be motivated, right, to be able to give your best, and you cannot deliver excellence, don't let your boss or whoever is supposed to promote you limit you. You can look for another role within your company. Or you can find another job altogether if you've tried everything. But one thing is, I feel like everybody always feels like they are not paying them enough. Everybody. It's like, oh, I'm doing too much work. They don't understand. They're not paying me. They're not. And something else that I feel like people get into is this promotion on changing titles. It's like, oh, I deserve to be a director, but I'm still a manager. Don't focus on just the title just yet. Start to deliver director level job. Don't wait till your title changes. Don't say because, oh, they haven't promoted me, I'm not going to do that director job. No. My previous role, I felt stuck. I just felt I had reached a ceiling. But I'm not going to sit there and say, well, they're not promoting me, they're not giving me other jobs. I started to talk to people within the same company because I actually like the company I work for. And my first conversation with the hiring manager, it wasn't an interview. It was just, hey, I see you're hiring. Can I have a chat with you? We ended up talking for 40 minutes, and he texted me after saying, you got the job. I had to call him, say, I didn't even apply for the position. So all the work that I had done, I was just speaking to my work and what I can do. So 2 things. Don't let anybody cap you. Remember, you're the driver of your career. If you feel like this road is stuck, right? If you're going somewhere in traffic, you're not going to say, well, they are not moving. We're all going to sleep here. No, you reroute. You reroute. And then you go somewhere else where you can deliver value, and you eventually be paid for that. Okay? All right. Next question.
Someone has a question here. Can we get a template for budgeting by one of the panelists? Okay, I found one recently online, and I had to pay for it because I looked at the state of our finances, and then I realized that it's like the debt was increasing, and I'm like, no, something. It's like not like we're not budgeting before, but sometimes when the money just comes in, it's just like, okay, let's just spend. We're fine. Credit is fine. You're investing at the same time. So, but the rate at which you're investing is not as much as the rate at which you're spending. So, I think one day I was on Instagram, and then I just saw this pop up, and then I paid
think it was about $40 or so. I bought this whole spreadsheet with different tabs, so it helps you monitor everything. You budget what you're spending for the month. You're budgeting. You would see how much so the thing about it now is you have to record everything you're spending, it can be very taxing, but I think it's worth it. 5 minutes a day, you can just look, okay, what did I spend money on today? Or you can always go back to your financial statements from your banks and all your cards and just impute that. Because what that does is it helps you. There's another tab that shows you, okay, this is everything you budgeted for this month. You have spent $300 more eating out. So, of course, you shouldn't get there, but that just helps you next month. It's okay. Maybe we need to budget more to eat out, which you shouldn't do, though. I think you should just cook. Buy food and cook. It's hard. Watch YouTube videos and just cook. As long as it's edible. It doesn't have to be the best. Just, So, yeah, if you need a template, I can hook you up on that one. And then you can find online. I'm sure there's, even on Excel, Google Sheets, they have templates as well. There are apps. So, yeah. And then somebody asked about side gig. Let me see. I saw it somewhere. Okay, let me answer this one. How can you start saving when you have thousands of dollars in debt and facing compound interest on credits and loans? The way I do it, because I also have some level of debt, is you do them side by side, right? Unless you want to just go aggressively and pay off the loan, but for me, I look at the rate of returns on investment. I look at the debt as well. I look at the amount of interest I'm accruing on the debt, and I weigh everything. Okay, as much as I want to pay down debt, I want to make sure I'm also investing somewhere. So there are instruments going on. You're investing. Those ones are growing. At the same time, you are being constant in your debt repayments, because a lot of times what happens is the money is very, especially consumable or consumer debt rather, it's very easy to acquire the debt, that extra $100 on your credit card, and it keeps compounding over the months, and you realize that, okay, I've racked up all of this debt. So the way you do that is, it's either you want to go aggressive, like I learned from, what's this guy, Dave Ramsey. It's like cut all your credit cards, throw them away, then aggressively, but you have to downsize. If you have Netflix, Prime Video, Max, Hulu, Disney before, then maybe you are just going to watch YouTube for the next 5 months. We're not paying for all of this. That's like $20 or $10, $15. Maybe you have Spotify, you have YouTube Music, you have iTunes. Okay, we are just going to listen to YouTube that is free. So a lot of times there are things that you can actually cut down. And then you have to, whoever is living with you, everybody has to be on board. That, okay, we're not going to spend rigorously on things that are frivolities, and then we're going to focus.
I would also say, for that person who asked that question, get something on the side as well. I mean, honestly, like in this America, one of the things I tell people is this: there's dignity in all labor. You may be somebody that walks in the downtown loop, but if you are broke, you are broke. Go and walk. I'm actually not joking. If you are broke, man. Go, if you don't want your people to see you, then go to another suburb and go and walk in the Whole Foods over there. But don't feel like you're too, that this is beneath me, But if you can't get a job in a grocery store, okay, hide behind an app, at least. If you were working at Uber, all you just say is your middle name plus your last initial. They won't know it's you, right? But it's an additional job, right? But there are many jobs that are out there that are part-time hourly jobs that you can do to get the extra income, just so that you can pay down debt as well.
Let me just add to what Pastor Moyo said now. For example, if you want to get into real estate business, trust me, let's talk. I can do your construction for you. I mean, I go there, Mumi knows, I could be there for like 6-7 hours and working with those people. I've learned the trade. I can't say I can install a cabinet very well. I can't say I can install a toilet very well, but I can get a good deal to make it perfect, do you understand, and save cost based on what I've learned from real estate. I think it's just And I see some of my, even my colleagues or people in my state, so I think it's just pride to say you can't do something, right? Anything that can bring money your way, and and you really need that money and you can spend the money well, please go ahead and do it. There's nothing like that's beneath you. I think it's just a mindset thing that people can change. I saw a question here. Yeah, you can see me. So that thing is customized, right? I can't just share it to everybody. Someone said they need a table of this real estate investment. When he gave it to me, it was like, he didn't tell me not to share it with everybody. But again, it's not something I would just send to you and like, oh, you just plot numbers. Because in real estate, there are so many things you look at. Like, for example, I'm there for the long run. Some people, are you for equity or you for cash flow every month? So analyzing a deal, a lot of things goes into it. And Pimo knows, you did an MBA in real estate, right? Yeah, so he knows more. But at least for a novice like me, I can give you a basic understanding, like what are you looking for? But to end, I think one of the things I've noticed nowadays is that people are just in some of these things for quick wealth. Oh, what can I gain tomorrow? And I'm happy that most of the panelists here today have not talked about, how you will make money today and you'll be a baller tomorrow. No. We're talking about in 10 years' time, can you continue the lifestyle you're living now? That should be your plan. As you're growing, grow your portfolio too, so that in the future, you are able to live the lifestyle you're living now. So I'm able to share the template, but again, it's something we have to talk about so that you understand what I'm talking about. Yeah.
The other thing I was going to share is, I know as folks are talking, it's like cut this, cut that. It's not forever. You have a plan. And that's what this is. Your financial journey is not, I arrived tomorrow, right? It's a journey. I want to leave a legacy for my children. I want to be able to do things that God has called me to do without thinking, oh, if they say, let's go on mission trip to Mexico, I'm not thinking I cannot afford it. Financial freedom helps you do the things that you really want to do. The other thing that just came to mind is, a lot of us sometimes we see LinkedIn or we see social media and you are saying people are living their best lives. Why can't I live my best life? And Pastor K is talking on Sundays like, you have the blessing and abundance. You're just seeing yourself like, on that vacation. That's where your mind is. If you need to cut that off, do it. You're not, don't compare yourself to someone else's Instagram post every Sunday. Compare your life with your life. And when you leave here today, you need to write down what you want to do differently. Otherwise, you're motivated right now by Sunday and you have gone on social media, all these things that you've learned, another information will wash it off. So you need to leave here saying, these are the 3 things that I'm going to do. Number 1 can be like, I'm just really confused and overwhelmed. Tomorrow morning, when I see Dr. Bumi, I want to sit with him. And we're going to do a raffle where people can raffle out and then get the opportunity to have a one-on-one with folks on the panel. I'll still see how we can make that work. But just leave here knowing you're going to do something differently. Otherwise, next year you're going to come and it's going to be the same story. All right, a couple more.
Just real quickly, so I've seen multiple questions on what can you invest in. Can everybody just bring your phone out? Go to ChatGPT on your phone. Very simple. And type in this prompt. Give me 5 ETFs that have returned greater than 10%. CAGR, that's compounded annual growth rate over the last 10 years. And just hit enter. Yeah, ETFs are mutual funds, whatever, right? So ChatGPT spat out Van Eck Semiconductors, that's SMH, compounded annual return in the last 10 years has been 27%. iShares Semiconductor ETF, ticker is SOXX, 25 to 26% annualized return over the last 10 years. Invesco Dynamic Semiconductor ETF, ticker is PSI, 24% annualized return over the last 10 years. Vanguard Information Technology ETF, VGT, 19 to 20% annualized return over the past 10 years. Invesco QQQ Trust, this is the NASDAQ ETF, 17 to 18% annualized return over the last 10 years. Just to be clear, I'm not a financial advisor, so it's true, they are streaming it and I have a funeral license, and let me put very clear disclaimer so that I can have my job on Monday. I am not a financial advisor. This is as provided by ChatGPT. Please. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, no, I wanted to speak to something, and I think oftentimes when you're just starting out, a lot of people don't know what to do, and that's normal. But the hack to it is, if you don't know what to do, follow somebody who knows what they're doing. Because I think the mistake we often make in our communities is we think we have to be the reservoir of knowledge and I have to know it. I don't know how to do residential real estate. He's my guy. I trust him. I know him. I will give him the money. Let him go learn with my money or make me more money. But at the end of the day, I would rather, because oftentimes people think to themselves that they've got to figure it out. You have to know it all. No, you don't. Sometimes it's as easy as copy and paste. But you've got to know the person you're copying. So for those who are even trying to grow their career, because I know there's a few career these things in there, what I found is find somebody who looks like what you want to do and be very good at copying them. You're probably going to make more progress than trying to figure it out yourself. I know you wanted to speak to that.
Yeah, I think that's Hello? I think there's a question here. It feels quite difficult breaking into C-suite. Can you share strategies to getting into that space? I'm not in C-suite. I'm close to C-suite, but I'm not there. But what I've realized in my own journey, in physician executive leadership is, I think Dickie talked about it, is don't wait for the role. Start acting in that role. When that role comes, trust me, no, they're not going to look for someone else. They're just going to come and look for you. So if you think you're a C-suite product, like Bumi said, find a mentor. Let someone mentor you in that role, but start behaving like a C-suite person. When you get to work, appearance matters. Show up like a C-suite. Work start at 8. Get there at 7:55. A project is ongoing. Take ownership of it. Again, trust me, what I've seen is in most of these organizations, when the role is already out, it's already been settled. They're just trying to get one or two more people to come and sit with you to see. They already have an idea of who are the people we're looking for. So don't wait for the promotion. Work or let your job, your attitude at work show that you're ready for it. So that when they're ready to pick it, it's just a no-brainer, you'll be picked. That's what I can share with that. And again, I cannot overemphasize the role of mentor. You have to get, and there's just only not one mentor. Get mentor in different aspects of your life.
All right. I'm going to be taking 2 or 3 of the questions on here. I'm just going to paraphrase. I can't remember, but one of the questions was, it had something to do with what if you have done some jobs and you don't know how to quantify the impact of the work you've done, and you don't have data to back things up. How do you handle that? Something like that. Okay, yeah. So it says, how can you show the value of your work on your resume if you don't have specific numbers or data to back it up? Okay. I think for me, I would definitely love to have more context around this because I'm curious to know why there isn't, enough data to quantify the impact of the work that was done. Is it that, I don't know, I'm just curious what the type of job is or so, but I'm just going to answer based off on what I've seen with people whenever I've done resume reviews before. So when I've interacted with people to review their resumes, sometimes I've found that when they are given projects to do in their companies, they aren't as inquisitive. And I guess let me just explain what I mean. So it's a situation where the manager says, do this, but they're not actually having conversations with the manager to actually understand what problem that project is supposed to solve. So if we're to look ahead, right, what I would just say is, or advise is that whenever there's something new you need to do, really question what's problem you're trying to solve, right? If it's a project for your company, feel free to ask your manager. If they're telling you to write some code for something, ask what the code is supposed to be for. What problem is it supposed to, to solve, so that when you need to update your resume, you have enough context to put on there. And if you're doing something, I don't know, maybe I'll say like non-profit related, like for example, having a non-for-profit, and what we do is we basically support international students in the United States, right? I have this written on my resume. I found ways to quantify the work that I do because, for example, every year we sponsor international students to professional conferences. So some of the things I put on my resume is I state how many people were sponsored so far. So I actually put that number on my resume and what type of conferences those people have been sponsored to. I've also maybe written about like initiatives we've done so far to increase our membership. So yeah, but of course, I wish I had more context, but that's just what I want to share. And there was another question. I can't remember. I think.
Promoting your side.
Oh, yes. Like if you have a side hustle and you're nervous about how to promote it on your LinkedIn because of, is it concerns from your colleagues or company? Once again, I wish I had more context around this. I'm curious to know why you even have concerns in the first place. Is it that you're doing something that's, is conflict of interest, I don't know, with the company? I'll say, maybe a safe answer would just be you can feel free to speak to your manager. Currently, like I mentioned, I work in media engineering. I have a non-for-profit that deals with international students. I've never had any concerns about posting things on my LinkedIn because those two things are, you get what I'm saying? There's no conflict of interest in that area. And there are times I've actually collaborated with prior companies I've worked in. Like when I was at Tesla, I worked with even my manager to even come speak at my non-for-profit and things like that. So I'll just say, like, if you have concerns, you can feel free to talk to your manager. If it's something that is not a conflict of interest, I don't think it's something you should necessarily be concerned about.
Awesome, thank you. There are a few questions. I just want to wrap up here real quickly because we're at time. So hit this one. What are your thoughts on Zip payments, buy now and pay installment? I would say just look at the interest rate, right, is number one. But number two, you shouldn't be buying anything that you can't pay at once right now. It's just like the simple answer for me on that. Let's see. We talked about the investment questions. Dr. Batosh talked about the real estate. Would you recommend consolidating credit card debt if someone has multiple cards with high balances? That's a bit of a tricky one. My initial response is to say no. But if you got like a 0% APR card for like a few months, maybe. But generally speaking, if you have high balances on multiple cards, you're probably not going to get that 0% APR offer. So I would not consolidate. I would say you attack each one. You can do like the snowball, method, which is you attack one first of all aggressively, and then take the savings from that and attack the next one. Because consolidating just would make, so let's say you have 5 cards that each have $5,000, then all of a sudden you now have one card with 25 grand. Psychologically it doesn't help versus like you paying down one $5,000 card. You'd feel like a victory that can motivate you to continue to pay down the other ones as well. So, by the way, one thing we really didn't hit on heavy in this conversation is the behavioral psychology and how that helps with actually, creating wealth and making money. Many times, behavior is one of the biggest limiting factors, right? And mindset for people in terms of how they can manage their finances. Which is why I like what Dr. Taya's question was on 401k. Now, there are a lot of people who online trash a 401k. And in principle, I agree with all their arguments on the 401k, but I just don't trust people, right? I just don't trust human behavior. I don't trust myself, that much. So if there's a way to sort of automate certain things and remove it away, from my control, then I absolutely want to do that. Let's see. How do you navigate feeling unmotivated? Tommy talks about that. That question on being unmotivated, Pastor Lai, I think he said it perfectly. Do what your hands finds to do well, and then what your heart is looking for, your heart will find it. Honestly, I think, in this day and age, we're too concerned about following our passion that, it hinders us from doing things that are necessary in the moment. Work as hard as you can work in the moment. If you don't have a job right now, I keep saying it, and I use this. I flipped burgers at Burger King. I got promoted to work in the cash register at Burger King. And I say that with all pride, and I keep my head high up saying it. If you don't have a job and you're looking for a job, get a job of some sort whereby you are making some money. Like, don't feel too, don't feel like it's, get the job and do it well. Do it well. Be the best Uber customer rep out there. Be the best DoorDash delivery person. Be the best Uber Eats delivery person. Do it very, very well. And then what your heart is looking for, your heart will find it. Actual investments, we already attacked that. What actual business can one either start or buy, and what lending? Okay, so our next career, business, and finance seminar is going to be focused on entrepreneurship. This one, we wanted it to be focused on career and personal finance, and the next one is going to be what? When? So it'll be it'll probably be in August, maybe September, but the information would come out, and that would be on entrepreneurship. Would be able to address that question in detail there. Is it possible for the panelists to pick people and mentor them? So we already have a mentorship program that we've put together. So that's one for men, one for women. If I know we talked about it being for singles, but I dare say, if you need mentorship, yes, you can definitely talk to, any one of the people on here. They'd probably point you first to the mentorship program that we set up. The Whole Woman was the one for the ladies, and then the Forge was the one for the men. So yes is the answer to that question. But also, one of the reasons why we have this event, right, which many people that I know that are in this church that actually need it are not here for, is so that you can actually get the information. I said this at the beginning of the session. The people that we see here, extremely busy, right? Botosh just told you here that he had an event that he had to cancel, that his colleagues have been reaching out to him saying, how come you gathered people and you're not here for that? He sacrificed so he could be here for people. It's not easy for any one of these people here to find, the extra time consistent. Am I lying? True or false? If somebody calls you and says, I want to talk to you 1 hour every week, it's a lot, right? It's a lot. So we put together this program so that we can actually be more efficient with their time. They've committed 3 hours to be here. So the next one we put together, come for it and tell the people who are not here that missed it that needed to come for it as well. But, talk to them if you need mentorship. Let them, decide how they're going to point you in the right direction. 23 years, make roughly about 150, okay, in sales. I know I want to be an entrepreneur in real estate and luxury rental. How do I get started? If you want to be a real estate entrepreneur, you're making $100,000, every year. Start with saving money, right? Start with, Botosh will tell you, you worked extra jobs initially to get some of the down payments you have. The other thing that you can do is you can house hack. I teach people I teach people these days that for many people, there's this need to want to buy my house so I can show out. I want to buy this house, I just 5-bedroom, I want to show people that I tell people, your first house, if you're going to buy an investment property, the banks require at least 20% down payment. In the current interest rate environment, it is very unlikely for you to actually be able to buy an investment property with 20% down. So we were having this conversation the other day. You probably need about 25 to 30% in the current interest rate environment. However, if you are buying a home that will serve as a personal residence, you have a first-time home buyers program that actually allows you to put down as little as 3.5%. I don't advocate putting down 3.5%. I think the more down payment you put, the better. But think about the math here. If you wanted to buy a house for $300,000, you'd have to put down 5% of 300 grand is what? $15,000. If you wanted to buy it as an investment in this current market, you need about $100,000 for you to buy that. So I say to people, house hack. Your first home, make it a 2-unit property or a 3-unit property, or make it a property where you can rent out one of the rooms. Buy it as a first-time home buyer, live in one of the units, but rent out the second unit. You would have bought that $300,000 investment property with only $15,000. You do that, it's not convenient, you live in there for about 9 to 12 months, and then you move out. Rinse and repeat the process. If you do this every year for 3 years, you would have 3 investment properties, and all you would have put down is roughly about $15,000 on average for those investment properties. Does that make sense? Versus like the need to put down $100,000. So for the person who asked this question, what I'd recommend here is you house hack initially. If you don't want to house hack, well, then you have to save up the money to buy your first investment property, and that's how you get started in real estate. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of our event for today. I hope it was impactful. I hope you learned something. I hope it was very practical. And please, let's celebrate the gentlemen and the ladies, Joy, Down, Dikintomi, Pastor Lai, Dr. Tayo, Dr. Bumi, Dr. Deji Botosho. I hope I'm not missing anyone. But please, let's put your hands together for them. Thank you so much for honoring us. Thank you so much for the time. I hope this was beneficial. I hope you take, action, right, with everything that you've heard. And I just remembered, on the day trading point, I pulled up some stats on that. The average, so here's the summary. Low overall probability. Studies show that only about 3 to 20% of day traders make money. And it also suggests that, FINRA, this is the financial, regulatory agency, shows that 72% of day traders experience financial losses. So that is a higher failure rate. Even if you think you're going to be, profitable in day trading and you're going to make, something, you have to risk adjust that return. So if there is a 70% failure rate, even if you have the probability of making a 100% return, you are effectively making a 7% gain on your money. You can just invest in the stock market and make that 7% anyways. Do you understand what I'm talking about? That's the risk-adjusted return on a 100% return, given a 70% failure rate in day trading. Hopefully with these few words of ours, we've been able to convince you. Oh, the raffle. We can shut off the live stream at this point in time. Thank you so much. God bless you.